Wine to Five is partially funded by Albarello Luxury Hand Soap, an unscented must-have accessory for anyone who loves wine, cooking, and food. For more information, visit albarellosoap.com.
It's not 5 o'clock, and they don't care. Welcome to Wine to Five. Entertainment, education, and everyday drinking for everyday people. Your hosts are Valerie Caruso and Stephanie Davis, two wine educators who don't need a clock to know when to pour that next glass.
Welcome back to another episode of Wine to Five. And I am so lucky to have Val back in the country and across from me via Skype. Welcome back, Val. How was the trip?
Thank you. The trip was awesome. We had great weather. We ate and drank our way around London and Rome. The graduation was nice. But you know what? It's good to be home. It's really good to be back in our house, our bed, and so it's like a little retreat. So it's nice to be cozy back home, and I've been wearing yoga pants for 2 straight days. It's freaking awesome.
That's good stuff.
Absolutely. You know what else is good stuff?
What?
Kathy Schaefer, the Sidehustle Wino, is in the house with us today. Woo!
Hey!
Yes! Sidehustle Wino!
So happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, we're so happy to have you too. And congratulations, we've heard you just passed the CSW, the Certified Specialist of Wine.
I did pass. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. You know, it's no WSET level 4 or anything, but...
Well, you know what? That's a whole level of crazy right there that, yeah.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to devote myself to practical application for a while.
Yeah, you know what, though? It becomes like you start with the CSW. That's how it starts, right? Start with the song classes, and then you're like, oh, I just CSW, and then... oh, why don't we try the CWE? I'm like, oh, let's do this WSET thing. That's fun. And next thing you know, you're looking at the Master of Wine page going, really? Do I really want to do this?
Sure you do. You do.
It becomes an addiction. It becomes an addiction, Kathy, so be careful. But we're so happy. And hopefully we'll get to meet up with you next year at the conference.
I hope so. I'm planning on attending. I sure hope that
this year.
To fruition. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This year. Yeah, it is 2017, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is?
Yep. 1 month down. Well, let's talk a little bit about Kathy. Steph, you've got Kathy's bio.
Yes, and I also want to make sure everybody knows we've got Kathy on today because she was our hashtag W25 challenge winner back in 2016. So
Yay!
Yay! I know, that's so awesome. I think it was a Facebook post. We draw each individual entry, and I think you had a Facebook post, and I can't remember what it was. It might have been.
I can't remember what it was either. I know I tag you guys a lot, so.
Oh, we appreciate it. I have to go through and look because I'm really bad about going through and looking until the end of the month. So we'll definitely have to do that.
Yeah.
Steph, tell us a little bit about Kathy. Why don't you give us a little introduction?
Okay, it's kind of a little teaser because then Kathy's going to tell us all about her wine journey. But Kathy Schaefer is the founder of Sidehustle Wino, a blog about her wine journey. And as we mentioned, she just passed her Certified Specialist of Wine exam. And she also works at a full-time desk job in order to put food on the table as she and her husband enjoy their 6th year of having college tuition as part of their annual expenses. And she would eventually like to see Sidehustle Wino progress into an actual money-making endeavor, providing wine tasting events with an emphasis on the experience instead of the sale. Kathy was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, spent a few years living in Clayton, California, and has been residing in Kennesaw, Georgia since 2000. She has a 19 and 22-year-old daughter and has been married to her husband, John, for 25 years. And a 13-year-old mutt named Snickers, that is so cute, and a horrible cat named Luna rounds out the picture. So maybe I need to ask about Luna.
She is, like, I'm a cat person, and she is the type of cat that makes people hate cats.
Aw.
Oh, no.
She is horrible, but, we keep her. She's, she tricked me at the shelter. She seemed all sweet and cuddly and purred, and she's just crazy. She is.
What about your Christmas tree? Does she like ruin trees or plants or something like that?
But I do let her in and out, and I had to take my bird feeders down because she kills everything.
Oh no!
So yeah, I'm like, I can't lure the birds into the yard for her.
I love birds.
Right,
oh no!
So yeah, she kills chipmunks and birds and anything she can find, really.
Well, she's just actually doing that as an act of love.
Right? She's bringing them to me, and yeah, she's just funny. She's not lovey. She's just, she's beautiful though. You can find her on my Twitter. There's some pictures of her here and there.
Oh.
I love my dog. I do, but I'm a cat person deep down inside. I would have, a cat shelter in my house if I didn't live with sane people.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And if you weren't so into wine, maybe that
right.
the wine business trumps the cat shelter.
Yeah. For now, till I can get some land.
Hey, well, let me ask you something. Have you tried that cat? They have wine for cats now.
I have not.
I don't even know where you'd even get that. I don't even know if PetSmart.
I bet you PetSmart has it. I don't know. I have not tried it, though. Just because she's so crazy, I figure I don't give her catnip either. She is pretty, she's pretty wild all by herself.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty funny. Maybe she should have her own YouTube channel.
Maybe.
There you go. Well, ladies, let's talk about what's in our glasses, because I'm going to pour a little more of this, Yalumba Museum Muscat if I don't, I need to control myself, I think.
That
here.
sounds nice.
Val, what are you drinking?
I am drinking some cider, but I have to tell you that Yalumba Muscat, I called it museum wine. I stumbled across a case of that for like $9 a bottle way back.
Oh,
back in like 2009, the wine place that I used to go to in North Carolina had it, and I want to say, I got it on some kind of like really wicked, like $9 a bottle, and that was my tiramisu secret weapon for many years.
I can see why. I mean, it's such a nice wine. Have you ever had this one, Kathy?
I have not.
It's one of those fortified Australian muscats, like a sticky, what they call these nice dessert wines that Australia is really known for, and it's got that beautiful dark kind of copper brown color. It's got a lot of the caramely raisin orange rind. It's just a super cool dessert wine, and I'm having it.
Delicious.
Yeah, it is. It is really delicious. The acidity is really nice, so it has freshness. I'm having it with a few squares of Ritter Sport dark chocolate with hazelnuts.
Oh, yeah, you are.
Yeah. So maybe that's my secret weapon, Val, is the Ritter Sport right now, I think.
I tell you what, that, because of the orange notes in that wine, and I would use that with espresso to make, to soak my tiramisu, ladyfingers, my Savoyardi cookies or whatever. And then the chocolate that I put in the tiramisu had orange zest in it, so it would tie it in with that wine, and it was just this great pairing. And I don't think I don't know if I had that here when you were here and I had the tiramisu. We might have served something else, but we did
have something else. I don't remember what it was.
Oh man, is that good stuff? But it's really delicious. So the cider here I'm drinking, I'm just kind of like wanting to set it aside now, but I've got the Henny's dry cider. It's from Herefordshire, UK. And an interesting note, this Herefordshire cider now has a PGI, a protected geographical indication status.
Wow.
I had no idea. And
I didn't know.
Yeah, you can go to their website and you can look at the actual production regulations, just like they have for wine and other, PGI products, regulated products. But I have to admit that cider is something I don't know a lot about. But when I first moved to England, I didn't really drink beer. I mostly drank at the pub. I would order cider. That's kind of what I drank when I was there this last time, unless it was a really good wine list. I just opted for cider. So that was kind of my first real alcohol love, when I hit my mid-20s, which
that really that fits in perfectly with your welcome back, like recent trip and everything, man.
Yeah, I know. It was so good to just sit down, the first night, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to order a cider. Because you're looking at the wine list going, depending on where you went, and it's just nice to have a cider after walking around, and we were staying right near Big Ben, and so it kind of went with the whole thing. So yeah,
maybe we should at some point have some episode on cider, because I think it is a great alternative to beer or wine, and it really has grown in popularity.
It really has, and I know, we're trying to get Diane from Foggy Ridge on here.
Yeah.
And she makes some nice sparkling cider, and then she also makes one in a port style, like your Yalumba Museum Musket, which used to say like port style on the label. I don't know if it does anymore. But
no.
She actually makes a cider in a port style, and that's something else I didn't know existed. So, yeah, we might have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's talk about Kathy. Kathy, what do you got in your glass?
Well, I have a boring old Cabernet blend, but it's from South Africa, which I thought was kind of interesting. So, and it had a pretty label, so that's why I picked it up for this show. But the winery, it's Mulderbosch, so it looks like it's only been around since like 2000, the early 2000s. Okay. So fairly new on the scene there, I guess. But it's a Cabernet blend, which I thought was a little bit interesting, and it's delicious.
Nice. Yeah. Have you? And so this is the first time you've had it?
It is the first time I've had it.
Yeah. And what's in the blend?
It is 39% Cabernet Sauvignon, 22% Cabernet Franc, 16% Merlot, 14% Malbec, and 9% Petit Verdot.
So it's a Bordeaux blend. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm familiar with their white wines. I used to get their Chenin, the Chenin Blanc, and then they have a Sauvignon Blanc, and they've got that long, strippy label that goes down that long strip.
The other ones do. This one's called Faithful Hound, and this was the other thing that did me in. It's named after a dog that apparently waited for 3 years for its owner to return to the cottage on the Mulderbosch farm.
Aww.
And the label on the back literally says, "Sadly, he died unrewarded for his loyalty." And I thought, well, how can I not buy this wine? So,
especially, if you're an animal person, for sure.
Yeah, so it's called Faithful Hound, and they do have a white one. Let me see what it is. I think it's just called, I'm guessing it's a white Bordeaux blend.
Did you find it somewhere locally?
I did. I got it at Marietta Wine Market, which is a little wine market on Marietta Square here near Kennesaw in Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that leads right into our discussion. Discussion. Do you have another sip of cider, Val? That's what happens when you go like almost 48 hours without alcohol, and then you take a sip and you're like, oh, hey, trying to detox a little. But you wanted to talk about wine labels.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you've mentioned 2 wines already that have very interesting labels, and one of them you actually purchased because of the label.
True.
Yeah. That's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. But before we get into the wine label art and all that, let's talk about where you started your wine journey, the Sidehustle Wino.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I wrote, my very first blog post talked about, I've always liked wine.
Yeah.
I think back in the college days, it was a love affair with Canai Rosé. Does anybody remember that? You could get it at every gas station and convenience store. But, just over the years, I've always, that it's not that I don't drink other things. I surely do. I love beer and, I love vodka and tequila. And I'm not, I don't drink and don't know much about whiskey. That'll have to be on my list of future things to learn about. But I always kind of was drawn more towards wine. And, we mentioned I have 2 daughters. So, and I've managed to stay married for 25 years.
There you
go. I'm sure there's no correlation to drinking a lot of wine there. But, and they make fun of us, suburban housewives for, our obsessive cab disorder, which I totally admit I had. That was the only thing I ever drank was Cabernet. And then, I was really moved by the scene with Maya describing wine as a living thing in Sideways.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't, that was the only thing that really ever stuck with me over the years. And then I ended up watching Somm and Somm Out of the Bottle and Bottle Shock and, every wine documentary you could find. And it just triggered, a deep-seated desire to really start trying other wines and learn more about wines. And, it's hard to find people who are willing to do that with you. Like, I can find any, I have 24 friends who will, drink a bottle of cab with me on any given day, but they don't want to go try different things. And, even travel and, really dig in a little bit. So that just kind of got me Googling around, trying to figure out how I could find, not serious, because I'm just not a serious person, but legitimate wine education. And so I ended up, after about 2 years of kicking it around and looking at, everywhere, the International Wine and Spirits Guild and the WSET and, the Society of Wine Educators. And that's where I ended up landing. And I very much on a midlife crisis whim decided, I'm not getting any younger. So I really put the cart before the horse, I think, with no industry experience and very little wine knowledge, signed up for the class. And here I am.
You mentioned putting the cart before the horse and not having any professional background, but you know how many people, when I was at the award ceremony and the graduation at WSET in London about almost 2 weeks ago now, you know how many people were not in the industry that were looking for, and they were our age, some older, and they were just looking for, to leave the fight. We had financial planners, we had corporate attorneys, we had pilots. I mean, these people have these amazing, these people from all over the world with these amazing careers and very successful. And there were some people that made me sit back and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I've done a lot. And then I'm like, whoa, I'm an underachiever. But at the same time, these people...
I don't think so. I've read your bio.
These people... I mean, some of them had no desire to go into the industry. Some of them have never been in the industry. And then they come out and just wanted to just start studying. So it's never too late. You never have to go, industry first. And there's no formula. And I think that's something that we listen to from listeners and people in the industry. And some people will call and chat with us about it. And it's like, there are different ways to break into the industry, and there are different ways to enjoy the whole wine thing without ever getting into the industry. Being in the industry was, believe it or not, something I didn't even want to do. Yeah. I just wanted to go to school. So,
I've heard that many times, being in the industry ruined what people, did not match what their expectations of being in the industry was going to be. And I think honestly, it is I would love to be an account rep or something, but I'm not, I think I might be a little older than the ideal candidate. Let's put it like that. So it's okay. I'll figure something out.
It is hard sometimes to look at some of these jobs, and every once in a while I think about putting a resume in for one, and I'm like, well, I don't know, you're traveling 3 weeks a month. Do I really want to do that? I kind of like being home now with my fiance.
Yeah.
And then
flexibility
there's
of schedule.
And then there's that whole, wait a minute, you're over 50. People don't hire people over 50, and so I keep forgetting that's an issue.
I've got an uphill battle, but, whatever's meant to be will work itself out. And if nothing else, I really, I do love the idea. And don't get me wrong, I love tastings that are geared towards sales. I mean, I like trying wines before I purchase them, and I think it's a great thing. But I think that there's just a market there for events, for people, you have people over and you're drinking anyway and you're playing, maybe it's a board game night or whatever. Well, you know what, once in a while, if you have friends who are interested, why not learn about the wines that you're drinking and have it not be sales oriented and just have it be more experience and education oriented. I would love that. I don't know if there's a huge market, but I would love it.
And I think, too, that, like, I don't think you would ever find a huge market, but I think there's a small market, and that doesn't mean that you can't be successful and enjoy doing that. I think ultimately, just make sure you know what you really want to do and what you appreciate the most about the wine experience personally. And then it will kind of come together. I really think so. I mean, just like Val and I randomly, meeting through a mutual friend to study for an exam, I mean, we really didn't have much overlap as far as people we knew and where we lived or anything like that, but it worked out that we were brought together, and who knew that we would have a show where we could work from home and produce a podcast together.
The most awesome wine podcast.
Oh, you're so sweet.
That's so nice. Well, I really do believe that if you love wine and you want to learn and give back and teach people or deliver some sort of an experience, then the Side Hustle Wino is a great way to start with that. And so, speaking of it, how did you come up with the name Side Hustle Wino?
Oh, you know what? I'm so glad you asked. So I came up with this idea sitting at work one day. I actually went and told a coworker, and I said, I know what I'm going to do in my semi-retirement. I'm going to have a business called Wine to Five. I said working wine to five. No. And so then I started Googling it, which is how God. I found you guys. So then I was like, all right, well, that won't work. So I just was mulling it over and kicking things around, and I came up with Side Hustle Wino. I thought, you know what? I think this is it. And that I opened up a Twitter account, which I don't tweet. I'm, my daughters tweet. I don't really tweet, but I'm learning. So it's kind of fun.
And I think that's how we found you, was on Twitter, because you were mentioning your commute.
Yes. You guys save my Friday morning commute every Friday, because that's usually when I listen to the podcast. And I don't know, if you've ever been to Atlanta, but the traffic is just...
I've heard.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a busy...
Well, and it
just
gets worse, every year. So it is what it is.
Well, should we get into the wine label art like we mentioned earlier?
Sure.
Yeah. I think it was a cool topic, Kathy. So tell us why you picked talking about wine label art.
Well, it has always intrigued me. And even when I knew nothing about wine, that was a huge factor in how I would pick my wine, which seems, kind of elementary, which it is. But, the more I've learned, and in prepping a little bit for this episode, it's really not a bad way to go. There's a book called Icon. Are you guys familiar with that book?
No.
It's from 2003, and it's written by Jeffrey Caldaway and Chuck House. And it is all about the business of wine label packaging and the art. And, the way he wrote, some of the writing in the book was, a little like Karen McNeil in that he was just so poetic in the way he described, the purpose of a wine label. It's the first interaction between the winemaker and the consumer. And it's what draws you in, and the only thing that the winemaker can really put on the outside of the bottle that will draw your interest. And it's a great book. It's an older book, and half the book is just pictures of labels that he talks about in the book. But it's fascinating because it actually is a whole entire industry. I mean, there's some of them they're manufactured different ways, and it was. Oh,
I would love that. I'm going to have to read that. That sounds great, because I definitely have an interest in branding and marketing and what makes something stand out. And there are so many choices now when you're going to purchase a bottle of wine. How would a winemaker connect with a consumer, when it's just somebody who's at the wine shop or the liquor store or grocery store, There's
an interesting spin on that also, because you mentioned that book, and I had to go back to a paper I did for my wine marketing class back in 2010. And I had seen a lot of marketing material come out on this, on marketing wines to women. So I did this paper called Wine, Women, and Labels. And looked at a couple papers. One of them was by Leslie Sbrocco, which that one came out in 2003. So a lot of these were kind of older sources, but I think the newest one I had came out. There was an Evelyn Resnick article, Wine Brands, in 2010, and then Amy Rosen wrote an article called Wine, Women, and Wrong. And they talked about tarted up labels doing a disservice to female drinkers. But where I was going with this, a lot of these articles and books talked about the difference between who's buying the wine. So you're talking about how do men buy wine versus how do women buy wine. And in one of the papers, understanding how male and female consumers differ, a lot of the focus had to do with most of the wine consumption and wine purchasing is being done by women.
Right.
And this, was a trend they started measuring probably as early as 1994. I think the measurements where I ended up with the paper, I think went up to 2007, and where they said 80% of the wine was sold to women. And this was a paper by Elizabeth Thatch, who said, we are the power base when it comes to wine purchasing. And she's a professor of wine business management at Sonoma State. So she wrote this Wine Marketing and Sales Success Strategies for a Saturated Market. And then she presented a paper on this. And so I'm looking at some of these papers and I'm like, wow. So pretty much as far back as 94, more than half the consumers were women. Now they're talking about what is it. They're trying to create this emotional moment and these women-oriented brands in these papers, and the way we buy wines compared to the way men buy wine. And I don't like generalizations, but would you say that women buy wine more based on, we talk about the experience of where men may buy wine more on, hey, this is a great investment, I'm going to buy it and then I'm going to show it to my buddies, but we're not drinking it, kind of thing. I don't know, Steph, Kathy?
I don't know that I have any facts behind it, but it just seems to me that a lot of men that are buying wine are probably buying something based on prestige.
Yes.
Or, the price, or if it's the way that it looks, does it appear to be prestigious or sophisticated or something like that? But I think it's very much dependent on, are they positive or do they feel confident that this is the correct brand to buy? Like, maybe they're concerned a little bit about the adventurous part of it, that I think maybe more women are kind of like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll make a gamble out of it. It'll be kind of just a fun little game if I like it or not. It's part of the fun is, I don't know, but it appears to deliver something just in connecting with the label already is delivering some sort of positive feedback. And so it's like, I already like how I feel buying it now. So now the next gamble, is what's it going to taste like? And less about what does everybody else think?
Yeah. You know what? I looked up that book, Icon, The Art of the Wine Label. I looked up a passage that it goes to that directly, but it's kind of how he puts it all poetically. And it says, a successful label beckons from a distance, then invites personal discovery the closer you get. Like revealing clues in a detective novel, the message on a bottle must engage the reader, skillfully maintain the suspense, and be compelling enough to lead you to the mystery inside. The package provides the only sensory clues about what lies within.
That is poetic. That is, yes.
Yeah. And that's so funny. I think you're absolutely right on the male versus female thing, though.
Yeah, and I think it is, like I said, it is a generalization, but in this paper by Marty Barletta, they talk about creating the emotional moment, and you just mentioned all of that in the passage you just read from the Icon book. In this paper, they distinguish between male and female consumers and how they differ in that, and I quote, he is more likely looking for a label and a price tag to impress his guests. Bart O'Brien of the O'Brien Family Vineyards says women buy wine to be shared, to create an emotional moment. Men often buy wine to be hoarded. They take it back to their cave and save it until another collector comes over. It's about scores and history. It's a little game of one-upmanship. And again, that's a quote. That is not Val's opinion, scores and history and all that. And yet, I would have never, I'm like the other way. I think more like a guy. I do think about experience and sharing. Like when I buy a wine, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have this for when Steph comes over because she'll get it, or whatever. But I don't look at the pictures. Like, I would have never bought a wine called Little Black Dress because it didn't say anything about the wine on the label.
Yeah, and it's just a weird name for a wine.
Yeah, and at the time there was a Pinot Grigio, and it was at the time I liked it. I don't know if I still would, but the whole thing of it was like I found it insulting that they have all these like tarted up wine labels now that appeal only to women. So there's like, there's Bitch, and there's, that wine, which there's, Mommy's Timeout, and there's all these wines that a lot of us think, oh, that's really funny to put in a gift basket or whatever. I don't know, but the wines, actually, Mommy's Timeout I used to like. It was a Pugliese Primitivo at one time, I think. And I did drink it. It was fine. But I had to taste it first, and I had to know something about what's in the bottle. And if the label doesn't tell you what's in the bottle, are you going to go, I don't know. I know how much of us would buy a wine based on the label alone.
I think that one thing, though, that we do know is that the three of us right now are not the average wine consumer, because not the average wine consumer sits through the certified specialist of wine exam. And so, I think sometimes, once you start moving into the wine education, you look at wine differently and you approach your buying differently. And so you're less of the average consumer. And so, if I were to try to put myself as a wine buyer or, as a wine consumer shopping maybe 15 years ago, I probably, if it's because I wouldn't have known anything about wine, I'm guessing that I probably would have done some sort of combination of price, how attractive the label was, and what made sense to me on the label. Like, could I pronounce the words? Did I have some general understanding of it? And then probably the last thing I would have done was, how do I emotionally react to it? I think I would have done some sort of combination of that without knowing anything about the wine. I think that's how I would have made my decision. But now, I mean, I'm working with a whole lot of information when I look for a wine. I mean, I've got so much to draw upon that I'm not the average consumer, but I really, once I started to like wine, I quickly went into the direction of studying wine because it hit me like, holy moly, this is just like, I have to know more of it.
I got bitten by a bug, and it was like a switch flipped, really. Yeah,
that's how it was for me too. I mean, I went from drinking Pinot Grigio every once in a long while because I would much rather have Captain and Coke. I really went from a margarita or Captain and Coke or Coors Light. I mean, really, that was as sophisticated as I was. And I had a really nice Cabernet. I don't remember exactly. I think it was a Napa Cabernet, but I can't remember exactly what it was. But anyway, and then I was just like, oh my God, I got to take wine classes.
So would you say that, learning about wine, Kathy, would you say that's changed the way you buy your wine?
But yeah, it has definitely changed the way that I buy wine. I keep a list of wines I want to try. I think that I'm actually going to start keeping a wine journal so that I can keep notes on the things that I do try. Because it's, there's just so many.
And you find maybe some of the greatest wines in the world that you never would have tried if you didn't learn about them.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. Or you would have looked at their label and been like, no, thanks.
Right.
Yeah. I think the label is still a huge thing for me. Like, I really believe, like, there's some sort of, like, connection, like, cosmic. But, I would like to even look at maybe a little bit whether or not the wine label art matches the name given to the wine, because I think in many instances it does, which is also intriguing. Like Little Black Dress or Bitch. You know, some of those are actually a little bit of a put off, right? Like, depending especially on what kind of mood you're in. But, you know, I did just pick a wine recently at the grocery store because I was walking down the aisle. The label stopped me in my tracks, and it was just this owl and the owl's face. And it was a simple label, but I just loved the owl. And I thought, you know what? If it was like, you know, less than $15. This is coming home. I'm trying the owl.
Was it Pundit?
No, it was.
I was going to say that, Val.
Let me see. It was Zach Brown is part owner in the winery. And I want to say it was J. Brown Alexander is the name of the winery. But, you know, and it was fine. It was good wine. For, you know, for your everyday, picked it up at the grocery store, but it was the label that did me in. And I had no idea until I got it home that Zach Brown had any, you know, thing to do with it, which was a fun little find because, you know, I love Zach Brown, so that was fun.
Well, and I think the people who design these labels, I mean, for the most part, they're, you know, usually people who are in marketing and branding. I mean, they work with the owners or the winemakers, you know, on developing the identity of that wine.
Okay, so I did find one that I think might be, it's the winemaker who designs every label. But the wine labels are actually pretty crazy. And it's a cult winery in Napa. Cine Quanon. I have never tried it, but it came up in the label. I was just, you know, Googling labels one day at work, and it is the winemaker who designs these labels, and he's actually had some rejected by the TTB because they were too risque.
Oh.
But one that was questioned and that he did get through was called the Hussy, and it's actually a picture of a lady sitting on an office chair, on a swivel chair, and it just shows her legs, really, like from the waist down. I mean, it is a little bit risque. But it's artistic. Like, I don't think it's offensive. But the one that was rejected was, it featured a nude man resting his head on the lap of a nun.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was called Good Girl, The Good Girl. And the label was rejected. They wouldn't allow it to happen. And so I looked up the winery just to, you know, get the story. And the winemaker is Manfred Kronke. And he does all the labels.
Huh.
So, and I thought, you know, that's kind of interesting. Like, I love that. Like, I think I want to believe that, you know, the winemaker has some say in what I'm seeing, you know, that's helping me make my decision. But probably not the case in most. It's probably, you know, a huge business of marketing and graphic art firms and
well, I think, too, because, you know, the talent of the winemaker oftentimes is, you know, not anything remotely close to marketing and design, art, you know, all that stuff. They have a really special talent as a winemaker, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they're really good at branding or marketing their wine. And so that's why they hire these, you know, experts in their field. But there was one time where I wrote a blog post around Valentine's Day. And it just happens that, you know, we'll be Valentine's here pretty soon. But I went into my favorite liquor store, Supermarket Liquors, and I told Adam and the guys that I said, I'm going to put together some Valentine's wine recommendations based on the label. And they were like looking at me like I was crazy. And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, what would you recommend if somebody said they wanted a Valentine's wine? And they're like, I don't know. I mean, they really had no, because they don't approach it that way and they don't think like that. Well, I just went down every aisle and just waited for, like your owl, Kathy, waited for something that was either risque, like women's legs, or something that had Cupid or a heart on it. And I took a photo with my phone. And I ended up with like 14 wine recommendations of different price points and all sorts of different styles of wine just based on the label as you could drink this for Valentine's Day. You know, you could give this to your honey or whatever, or, you know, to your office mate, you know, or whatever. And people do that. That's how they buy a lot of times. Mm-hmm.
In general. Yeah, and it's funny also that you mentioned that the winemaker of SQN is the one that designs the labels.
Yeah.
And it would make sense that you would expect the label to give you a clue as to what you're going to experience in the bottle.
And it really doesn't.
And women do, according to all this paper that I did, and I'm looking at the presentation, I was able to pull it up. It's really kind of an interesting presentation, but it says winemakers are now appealing to women more in the marketplace. So it's interesting also that women do care more about the philosophy of the winery, and we are more drawn to the design of the label and not so much the ratings.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just kind of interesting you said that. And I just pulled up all these pictures. It's really cool. I should share this with you guys. But yeah,
I want to read it.
You should, Val.
I mean, it's so old now, and it's probably, there's so many resources out there that I probably could have used that I didn't. But we're kind of going on, and we need to probably wrap up.
Yes. Hey, Val, deliver us a good geeky factoid.
Yeah. How about a geeky factoid about wine labels to wrap up before we move on? I found in a book I'm kind of like reading, you know how you just kind of go through and you just read chapters here and chapters there and you got 6 books open at once. One of them is a book called Wine, A Cultural History by John Variano. And he mentions in this book that wine labels can actually be traced back to Egyptian tomb contents of the likes of Tutankhamun. In fact, they found jars of wine buried with him that contained, and this is a quote from the book, the location and proprietorship of the vineyard, and the name of the winemaker.
It's amazing.
They also
That's
had
so awesome.
the years that he was reigning, so they believe that this is kind of the closest thing to like an appellation. They talk about where the grapes are grown, the name of the winemaker on this label, and of course he's drawing upon a couple sources that I didn't know exist. Again, we're all learning stuff here. And he's drawing on 2 works by Leonard H. Lesko. One is called King Tut's Wine Cellar.
That's cool.
What?
Yeah.
And I know what?
So cool.
And another one is called The Origins and Ancient History of Wine. And there's an essay in particular called Egyptian Wine Production During the New Kingdom, which, again, didn't know these existed until you read a book and then there's other references and then you just kind of, you have this long list of books now in your iPad, Kindle, and you're going, I'm just going to read a paragraph here. And you can never read a whole book, so this is what happens.
And I think that's how you know when you have a problem, when those books just make your heart beat faster.
They really do. It's like you get really excited about this, like King Tut's Wine Cellar. That should be a movie. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's what I thought. That is exactly what I just thought. Oh my God, Val, that's sick. Stop reading my mind.
I've never read the book. I don't know where to even. I even looked at how to get it. But I even finished John Variano's book, and I've had it since we interviewed Massimo Capetti because he mentioned he was going to use this book in one of his classes. So I downloaded this sucker right away, and I'm still like reading this and Oz Clarke. I'm still working through all these books. But he does go on when I'm talking about John Variano. He does go on later on the book. He references Jancis Robinson's Oxford Companion to Wine, which we all love, and he reminds us that the actual paper, when we talk about wine labels, you know how wine labels are intended to actually advertise the wine or market the wine, but actual paper labels that, even though they inked on the jars back in Egyptian times, the actual paper labels, they weren't used for labeling and attached to bottles until the 1800s. And we know from our episode on champagne way, way, way back that there was a time when glass bottles weren't uniform in size because of the way glass blowing was done by hand. So until wine was actually sold in regularly uniform bottle sizes, that was about the time that labels were actually affixed. So it wasn't until the 1800s that labels actually showed up. So it's not been very long that we've actually even had labels on the bottles.
Right.
And I think that's interesting, geeky wine label stuff. And we could go on all day, but I just thought it was kind of cool.
It is geeky, and we almost need to have like a Wine Dork Anonymous group now.
Oh my God.
Oh, shoot. Anyway, that is a very good factoid. And you ladies have dug up some cool books for our listeners. So I thank you for that, because I'm going to add some of those to my list too. And what else is on my Wino radar besides all of these cool books is we have new Wine 25 swag. Oh, yeah.
What?
And I'm so excited. We have our Wine 25 t-shirts now. They are super cool and also super comfy. And so more details will be coming soon on how to get them. We only printed a few, so we don't have very many. and they are very limited, but keep checking social media to see how you can get your Wine25 shirt.
Oh my God, I don't even have mine yet.
Okay, Val, you don't have to keep checking social media, but everybody else does.
Oh my God, I can't wait. I'm so excited. And, we're going to Podfest and we're like, we've got to have t-shirts. Let's just print some up. Stoked. Yeah. Kathy, what do you have on your Wino radar? Anything? Anything that you found lately that's cool or interesting or?
Okay, here's what you might want to cut this out of the podcast, but I check out wine industry news every day at winebusiness.com. Mm-hmm. And all through the month of January, you guys might appreciate this living where you do, but it is a hot topic. One of the articles posted yesterday is wine getting smoked by weed? And there's all these articles about how with marijuana becoming legal in more and more states, the impact that they're seeing it having, that they're anticipating it having on the wine industry. So that's just something I find very interesting. I would have never thought, that one would have affected the other. But just in the month of January, I've read 5 articles on the impact of legalized marijuana on the wine industry. So that's something I'm saving those articles and reading, and I think maybe coming up with a blog post in the near future about. But so that's just what's on my radar, which has nothing to do with, anything relevant.
It actually was been on my radar too, because I don't know if either of you saw, but there's a wine and weed symposium
in Sonoma.
Yes, that's coming up this year. And I saw that and I was talking to one of my friends about it when I was up in Steamboat. I was like, wow. I mean, yeah, it is a real thing. And the there's, what's that publication, Val? Is it the...
It's called The Clever Root.
Clever Root.
That the Somme Journal folks put out that has...
That's right.
In fact, that was the Gongers that they were talking about in that article when I got my first episode, my first edition. What is it? Volume, edition, issue. Oh, I got so many issues. I got more issues than Time magazine. But Somme Journal
now.
Yes,
you have a lot of tissues.
I got a lot of tissues now too. But Somme Journal has, it's like that's like wine porn if you're in the industry. I love reading that. And the first issue I ever got was on. There was an article in there about the Gongers, which are like sommeliers for weed.
Oh my gosh!
And so it's a lot of weed articles out there. I remember reading one about the farm workers, kind of moving over from the vineyards to the weed, so they're worried they're going to lose a lot of their labor in the vineyards. And they also talked about a lot of these wine and weed pairing dinners and stuff like that. And I believe our brothers over at We Like Drinking they kind of rolled into that a couple weeks back too. Now I'm a couple episodes behind, guys. Sorry, but I'll listen to you in the shower soon. But they were talking about these wine and weed dinners, and it's crazy how weed is.
That brings food pairing to a whole new level. Like, I can't even imagine.
Well, in the article you're talking about, I did see it, because they were talking about people, like, doing a smoking before dinner, and then some wine, and then thinking that wine, at least in Colorado, there's thinking that wine sales are increasing because of weed.
Oh.
I don't know how they can even correlate that.
I don't know. I guess it makes you thirsty, like Rick Cottonmouth, right? But, what kind of food? I don't know. I'm just being silly. I'm thinking like Cheetos and, Captain Crunch is like what's being served.
I know. I don't get it at all. I have no
I'm sure somebody's going to set me straight on social media on that, but
well, you know what? It's always nice to open a discussion as long as people are nice, nice about it. That's fine. But that is a good thing to have on the Wino radar. Yeah, we'll keep that in there.
Yeah. That could be we just need to find the right guest, and we could get a lot of people schooled on that, including me.
I know.
Right? Well, my dad is a master gardener, and he's up in Ohio, and he's been saying for years he's just looking for a plot of land so he can grow medicinal marijuana and it becomes legal in Ohio. So,
there's a lot about I don't.
Yeah, no, me neither. I'm too old, but
Same here, yeah.
I just think it's really interesting that it's come up in my newsfeed like 15 times in the month of January alone about how one is going to affect one industry will affect the other. So
yeah, that is an interesting wino radar. But yeah, that's awesome. Do you guys have any shout outs this week, Kathy, Steph?
I don't have anything off top of mind. What about you, Kathy?
I really don't. I'll give a shout out to Jane and the Society of Wine Educators because I don't know how I passed that test, but I did.
Oh, that's awesome. No, Jane is the stuff. I'm telling you. And you heard that. Go ahead.
She's just so entertaining. Like I just would love to be able to like actually meet her in person and she's just great.
Oh, hopefully you'll get to because she's I think in person her energy is even more infectious.
I bet.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And you, I don't know, were you a listener back when we interviewed her?
No.
Yeah, there's.
Oh, you got to go check that out.
Which
her
episode
story
do you remember?
Is the bubbly professor. We can pull that up for you.
Let me pull it up.
I'll find it.
You pull it up, and I'm going to give my shout out. My shout out is going out to some great people I met in London. I got to chat a little with some fellow graduates after the WSET award ceremony, and that in and of itself was incredible. I mean, there were so many people getting awards, and congratulations to all of you who won scholarships. There's so many scholarships. A lot of them go to people in the UK, which is awesome. So I did get to meet some interesting people, though. I met again, Elisa, who is part of the Society of Wine Educators, and she was actually at the Bourbon Conference and the DC Conference. So it was good to see Elisa and her husband, Robert, again. Lenora and her husband, Miles, from Canada. They're both pilots. Lenora just retired from her piloting, and I really enjoyed meeting them. And I also got to meet Corinne, Nupur, and Sabina, also from Canada, and I got to have a little chat with Mike from the UK Bartenders Guild. So that was fun. But I have to say the highlight was Joe Fattorini. I got to meet Joe from the UK's wine TV show. And it is on Hulu. And I got to meet his lovely fiancée, Christina. So it was great to have a quick chat with you guys over some sherry before the awards portion of the evening. Or the wine show. Not wine TV. It's the wine show. And
it's the wine show TV.
It's wine show TV. I call it wine TV, but it's actually the UK's wine show. It's a TV show. So yeah, wine show TV.
Why don't we have that here?
It's on Hulu.
It's on Hulu.
And I don't have Hulu. And that's why I said, Joe, I've only been able to stalk all your trailers on YouTube, but I can't get the show. And he goes, oh yeah, it's on Hulu. So I think John's going to help me get some Hulu and see the show. But it was so cool meeting them, and we're trying to get him on the show too. He listens to the podcast, which I thought I was giddy over. So I wish I could have talked to more people, but there were so many people. It was a big room of people, and I wish I could have made it around the room, but it was really nice to have the conversations I got to have, especially with all the guys from Canada. That was awesome. So cheers to all y'all, and Patreon love, Steph.
Yes, and before I go on to the Patreon love, I just want to make sure everybody knows that Jane Nichols was on our show in episode 32. So check it out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Enjoy the laughs with Jane.
Oh my God.
I want to just squeeze in a shout out too. I can't believe I didn't say this, but shout out to the Atlanta Falcons, people.
Oh yeah,
we are in the Super Bowl on Sunday.
Yeah, that's who I'll be rooting for.
I need to come up with some Super Bowl wine stuff.
You go. There you go.
Let us know what you picked. Yeah, let us know.
Okay.
Yeah, and sorry about the Steelers. So yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I'm from Cleveland. I know how to lose.
Yeah.
Bad. They didn't. Yeah. Let's not go there. But let's go over to Patreon love and how much we love our Patreons.
Our show would not be possible without you, our listener community. To find out more about how you can support Wine to Five show, please go to patreon.com, Wine to Five podcast.
So, to our tenacious tasters, Jeff E. from the Hilarious Drinking Show, We Like Drinking, and Lynn G. from the wine blog Savor the Harvest. Thank you so much, guys. And to our It's Not 5 o'clock and We Don't Care listeners, thank you, Meg, Clay, John, Andrew, Michelle, and Aswani. We thank you for being a part of our vital Wine 25 listening and sipping community. And we also want to remind everybody that we do have a monthly Patreon drawing that we started at the beginning of this year, January 2017. And each month we're drawing a winner for a bottle of Albarello Luxury Hand Soap for any supporter of a Patreon supporter at the $2 a month taste maker level and higher. So go to our Patreon page for the details. That's www.patreon.com/wine25podcast. And today we are drawing a winner. And the winner, Val, who's the winner?
All right, let me get my magic spit bucket here. And because that's where all the names are. It's clean. It's okay. So this is for February. This is a February winner. Okay, I wish I had somebody else to draw. I think John's still over at his brother's. Let's see. All right, I'm going to pull one piece of paper out, and it is for Andrew Villarreal.
Yay, Andrew! We are going to send you your winning bottle. Thank you so much.
Yay, congratulations. Whoops, sorry. My spit bucket. Okay, and that was our February winner. And if you love the Wine to Five show, then we know you'll share our show with your friends and your online community, and we certainly appreciate all your involvement and your feedback. As you can tell, we've got a community here, and we love that you're part of it. You can leave us a burning wine question or a comment on SpeakPipe, and you can hear your voice on the show. iTunes love is always appreciated in the form of a glowing iTunes review as well. And for your listening pleasure, whether on iOS or Android, we are also on iHeartRadio. Come play with us on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, Google+. Also, you can build your collection of wine books and accessories at our online store, also located on our website. And I believe I added the wine coloring book to the store. So
nice.
Check it out. Check out the wine coloring book. And you can connect with me, Val. I'm on Twitter. I'm Wine Gal Unboxed. I'm on the Vino with Val Facebook page. On Instagram is Vino with Val. And believe it or not, I'm on Pinterest once in a while. Steph, she's on Albarello Soap on Twitter and on the Albarello Soap Facebook page. Check out her videos on the Albarello YouTube channel. She's also on Instagram as the Wine Heroine, as well as Pinterest. And Kathy,
yes,
where can our listeners find you?
I am Sidehustle Wino everywhere you look.
That's smart.
Which right now is really just Twitter and Facebook. So
great. Are you
and
on?
I'm on WordPress if you want to follow my blog. But there's,
Okay. And on Instagram? Are you on Instagram?
On Instagram, I think I'm under Kathy Schaefer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm, between Kathy and Schaefer, you'll never spell that right.
That's so true, right?
Yes.
Okay, we'll tell people how to spell Kathy Schaefer.
Okay, it is Cathie, and Schaefer is Schafer. So one
right.
F. Yeah.
We'll have those links in our show notes for y'all too.
Oh, I'm trying to stalk you on Instagram right now.
Yeah.
Sidehustle Wino. Follow.
Thank you all so much.
Oh, thank you for being here. This was a lot of fun. What a great conversation. And you prepared probably better than we did. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you did. That's great.
Good job. Val, we are now Instagram friends. That was fast.
Hey man, I don't mess around.
Seriously. Oh my goodness.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no,
ladies.
I'm honored. I love you ladies, and it's been so much fun.
Gosh, we appreciate you too.
And you have such great energy, Kathy. We really appreciate just being with you tonight. Was a real treat.
Well, thanks so much.
We could talk all day, but I think we need to wrap it up here. So
I think that calls for cheers. So get your glasses up, ladies.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Wine to Five podcast. Be sure to check us out at Facebook/WineTWO5 and tune in next week for more fun and useful sip tips.